Don't get in a car with strangers, okay? Don't get in a car with acquaintances. It's just too risky. Oh God, I talk a lot, huh? Hi everyone, my name is Tia. I wanted to share a few beginner thriller recommendations for those who are like me and are weenies and have never really read thrillers and don't want to be too spooked out. As a backstory, in 6th grade, I went to a sleepover. We watched Insidious and her grandma crawls underneath the couch and grabs our legs. My tiny little 6th grade ankles. Oh my God. Ever since then, I have been totally put off from thrillers, but I love the adrenaline that comes along with reading a thriller that's done well. Firstly, I would say you should try starting to read young adult thrillers, even if you're not a YA reader. I think I was comfortable starting with YA thrillers because it's so much more digestible. Let's start strong. Anything written by Holly Jackson, I think, is a fantastic place to start. I will absolutely recommend A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is very popular and for good reason. This is one book talk recommendation that I will wholeheartedly bat for. You follow our main character, Pip, who is a high school senior, and for her final year's project, she decides to do a little bit more deep dive in a murder case that happened 5 years prior. There's this girl named Andy who was murdered by supposedly her then boyfriend Sal. And a couple days after Andy's murder, Sal ends up dead. And so the whole case was basically tied up as like, oh, Sal killed Andy, his girlfriend, and then Sal killed himself. Case closed. But Pip puts on her detective hat, right? And she's like, I feel like there's something more here. I just feel like the pacing of this whole trilogy was done so well. You're immediately sucked into the story. I listened to the audiobook version of the trilogy. It's kind of multimedia. So Pip is obviously doing this research for her project, and so she's calling people, and they literally use an effect of the narration of the audiobook so that it sounds like you're on the phone. The story comes alive because of how well done the audiobook is. You root for Pip as a main character because she has good intentions. She feels like there wasn't really justice done for Sal's family, and her brain, her thought process, it's so fun to be in the mind of that like soon to be detective. She's so intellectually curious that you just want to keep reading. And then Ravi as a book boyfriend slash love interest. Oh, I love Ravi. Like, I love the way that their relationship evolved throughout the trilogy. I feel like it's definitely a side plot, but it adds so much to the story. The pacing is done really well. The plot is so gripping. There are so many twists. You're constantly being kept on your toes. The second one of the trilogy I think was my favorite. I really liked the first one and the second one, and then I will say the third one is a bit more graphic. So I feel like it's more common to what you see in adult thrillers, and this is why I recommend A Good Girl's Guide to Murder for your first toe dip into thrillers, is because the progression from YA thriller to like, oh, the third one is a little bit more adult thrillery is a really good transition as a beginner. You're already invested in the characters. You want to know how this murder case ends. You can't help but finish the trilogy. One of my favorite thrillers ever. I will always recommend A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Also by Holly Jackson is something called 5 Survive. A bunch of high schoolers are going to meet their class on a spring break trip, but they're taking an RV instead of flying. The RV gets stuck in like buttfuck nowhere, and the kids are like, what the hell is going on? And they end up realizing that they were trapped in the RV in that place, isolated on purpose. Isn't that terrifying? Literally one of my worst fears. I've decided that I'm not gonna go on a road trip unless they are like my absolute ride or dies. They're getting these threats from like the outside world. They find out that one of the people in the RV has a secret, which is the main reason why they got stuck in this RV. And so they have to uncover this secret for the rest of them to survive. The outside threats is only looking for one person on the RV. They have to do this internal investigation of each other's secrets and lives. Everyone's trust is tested. The more the secrets are revealed by all the people in the RV, the more you're constantly reevaluating like who's right, who's wrong, whose fault could this be. It's not like you're suspicious of just one person. Okay, who could have done it? Like, whose secret is worse? And I loved the ending and the secret reveal. I remember I was driving home one night after dinner. I was listening to it and I literally was like so flabbergasted by what's going on that I had to rewind it and listen to it again. And I don't really do that usually, so I knew that it was good. I liked it a lot. Other YA thrillers that I would definitely recommend: They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Erica Goodman. Truth be told, I wish I could tell you that I remember more about this book, but I don't. I think I read it in like January, February of this year. I just remember the vibes were good. But isn't that all you need? It's like Gossip Girl core, but with murder. There is a lot of cliquey private school politics going on. The popular group versus the rest of the school. You get into that dynamic and how that can maybe breed jealousy, aka motive to murder. So you follow Jill, who is our main character. Right now, she is a senior and she's part of the popular crew that rules their school. Flashback to her freshman year, her best friend Shayla was murdered by her boyfriend at the time, Graham, and Graham actually confessed. 4 years later, Graham's innocence is being brought back to the table, like maybe he actually didn't do it. And this whole thing essentially puts a wrench in Jill's ideal picture perfect senior year, being the top dog of the school. Overall, I thought it was good. You're looking for something prep school vibes, Gossip Girl-ish. I liked the book. Moving on to another author that I've definitely really enjoyed this year, which is Karen McManus. She also does a lot of YA thrillers. Let me start off with a book that I just recently read from her and I really liked it. Two Can Keep a Secret. Oh god, I finished this audiobook around 11 p.m. and I needed to take my dog out to pee before I put him into bed, and I was genuinely considering waking up my girlfriend and being like, hey, I think you need to take the dog out because I'm too scared to go outside. I muscled through it. I did it on my own. I did have my flashlight on. I was ready, right? But I did it. So that's kind of the vibe. I was spooked when I finished this book. That's how good it was. That's how you know it's successful thriller, when it makes you feel like that. I love the writing. I really liked the characters. And I just really enjoyed how the plot ended up unraveling. You follow our two main characters. They're twins and they're moving in with their grandma to this small town where their mom, Sadie, actually grew up in. But Sadie moved away from that small town because when they were in high school, Sadie and her twin sister, Sarah actually disappeared and then she was murdered a couple days later. I believe that's how it went. So Sadie decided to leave the town because her sister was murdered. Sadie is no longer an appropriate caretaker at the moment, so they move in with the grandma. That's where things start. And already, once they arrive, bad things already start happening. You as a reader are trying to learn about the people of the town while our two main characters are also trying to make friends, learning about the town, what the heck happened to their aunt. There's a tiny side romance. I love going into books blind, like absolutely knowing nothing about the story. So I don't want to tell you too much, but I did really like the side romance in this book actually. I feel like it added to the mystery a lot. You're just unraveling the townspeople, what happened in the past, what's happening now. Are those two incidents connected? And oh god, the last line is so creepy. I don't even want to think about it. That's my top recommendation from Karen McManus. Moving on to her most popular series is One of Us is Lying. I didn't love the first book of this series, only because I thought that this book was too predictable. It's like The Breakfast Club, but there's murder in it. You're given too much information at the beginning for it to feel like you need to be on your toes. But the sequel, One of Us is Next, so good. I loved this book. Rewind. In the first one, what happens is Breakfast Club with murder, a bunch of kids go into detention and then one of them dies in detention and you're essentially figuring out like what the heck happened in that detention room, who is behind that murder, and it centers around that group of kids. Whereas in the sequel, One of Us is Next, you're introduced to an entirely new cast, which I thought was so refreshing. The sequel feels totally opposite of the first book in a good way. I don't want to say too much about the sequel because I want you to read the first one. First one is not necessarily a recommendation from me. It's more like a prerequisite to the sequel, which is a strong recommendation. And then I'm also reading right now Nothing More to Tell, same author, Karen McManus, and I'm like 90% done. And I like it. I'd say Nothing More to Tell is a little bit on the lines of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder because you follow this teenage girl, Bryn, who is working for this true crime podcast. So she digs up the murder of her 8th grade teacher now that she is a senior in high school, and you're kind of unraveling the story of like who actually murdered the teacher, because the story of the students who found the teacher's body is almost too clean cut. It's too convenient to be true. I like the characters. I like how it's slowly unraveling. I do enjoy the sub romance to this one as well. I don't know the ending, so hopefully I don't eat my words while I'm editing this, but so far I do like this one. And so those are my YA thrillers. I feel like that's a good place to start. So now we're gonna go into a adult thrillers. I want to start with my favorite thriller to date, Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. It's set in a small town. You're getting to know a lot of the people in the community. The web of the town, though, is so spread out that you really are grasping for straws as to what information to believe, like who can you trust. The story takes place kind of a back and forth timeline because 11 years ago, Shelby, just a woman in the town, goes missing. And then a week after Shelby goes missing, Meredith, just another random woman in the town, goes missing with her young daughter Delilah. So the town kind of got up in smoke because they're like, are these two missing people's cases related at all? Are they two separate missing persons cases? Because that would be also scary. It ends up just being a cold case. The police give up. They're never really sure what happened. But then flash forward to the present day, 11 years later, Delilah comes back. Poor Delilah, she is back. She's now a teenager. Now what you're trying to do is unravel her past. What happened while she was gone? What happened when she disappeared? You're definitely trying to piece together the present and the past. And what I think I love about it is that it's told in multiple POVs. So you get a bunch of different characters' perspective of what happened in the town. You get Meredith's point of view, one of the women who went missing. So obviously first-hand experience of what's happening. And then you also get neighborly perspectives, people adjacently involved but not directly affected by the missing persons cases. You get a really good feeling of how it felt when the crimes were going on. Mary Kubica does such a good job to make the town come alive. I loved the ending. I don't usually try to guess what's happening unless it's very obvious. Like in the Karen McManus, One of Us is Lying, it was too obvious that you had to guess. Oh my gosh, I did not see the ending coming. I thought this was so good. And then the last one I think is a little bit different than my other recommendation. It has a different vibe. The Last Thing He Told Me, I feel like it's more of a mild domestic thriller. Essentially, you follow Hannah, who married Owen a year ago. And then Owen has a teenage daughter named Bailey, but then randomly one day Owen goes missing. Hannah and Bailey are kind of left to fend for themselves. Owen leaves Hannah a note that says protect her, which means like protect Bailey, his daughter. The FBI starts digging into Owen's disappearance as you learn more about what Owen did wrong and why he disappeared. Owen is definitely not who Hannah thought he was. Hannah and Bailey essentially have to embark on this new life without Owen and kind of uncover who Owen really was as a person, as a man. It's different because there's no heart-pounding, heart-stopping, crazy moments of like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? There is a mystery element to it because you really have to watch Hannah and Bailey chase after Owen's secrets and Owen's true identity. It's a very introspective narrative, and I just honestly loved the familial relationship that grows between Hannah and Bailey over the course of the book. You're really just rooting for them as characters. Whew. Those are my thriller recommendations for my fellow scaredy cats. Coming from someone whose typical genre is romance, literary fiction, it's so fun to kind of get out of your comfort zone, read a different narrative that you're used to. If you've never really thought about it, I would love for you to give it a try. If you have any recommendations for me to try out, please, please, please let me know. I'm absolutely loving reading thrillers. And if you didn't notice, I'm using my new camera. I used to film with my phone and a $15 mic that I got from Amazon. I won a giveaway from Sky's channel. I will link him below. He does these awesome tech reviews, so I'm very grateful. Sky is nothing but an awesome dude. He was so communicative and enthusiastic this entire process, so I'm very grateful. So those are my thriller recommendations. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye. It's so cool having my own camera. Oh my god.